What is the magic of Christmas? I wonder that myself, especially as a parent. What is the magic of Christmas? And how can I bring it to life? Not only for my child, but also for the world within my art. What I choose to create, will it change somebody? I hope it changes them for the better. So, come along with me as I create my 2024 Christmas painting. I sketched it out first on my iPad in an app I like to use called Procreate. I've been actually doing this for a number of years now. I'll play around with an idea, sketch it out, and there we go. And then it's time to prepare all the materials. For this painting, I decided not to use my favorite paper. My favorite watercolor paper is Arches 140-pound cold press. It is my favorite. But for this one, I knew I wanted to do something and be prepared for it. And you'll see later on how I prepared for it. So once I have my sketch, my composition, my colors all done, I'll draw an outline, print it out on regular copy paper, and use this handy dandy little light pad thing, which I'll link in my description if you want to get your own, to transfer my drawing over to my nice paper. I like to do this because I feel like if I scribble a whole bunch on my watercolor paper and erase it, that it disturbs the fibers, and then the paint doesn't absorb right. Going through, tracing out all the outlines so I have my composition and all the foundations for my painting ready. One final check. The paper I used for this painting is Arches Hot Press 140 pound. I haven't used this paper very often, so little trial and error sometimes, but that's okay. So with all my watercolor paper, once I draw down the outline, I like to tape it down to something sturdy. Now comes the part where I realize I have a lot of watercolor paints. Yeah, time to sort through the ones that I think I might want, I know I want, and the ones I definitely do not want. I have two brands right now. I use M. Graham & Co. watercolor paints along with Daniel Smith. M. Graham, I've been using them for over 20 years. They're actually made about 25 minutes from my house, and it's a really good company. But I've been playing around a lot with Daniel Smith lately because I'm a little bit of a sucker for granulating paint lately, and I really like some of their options. But you know what? You can mix and match as many brands of paint as you want. Sometimes some brands of paint have a very specific color, and other ones you like that variation of that particular color the most. Paintbrushes. I have a couple paintbrushes. I wanted to limit myself with what paintbrushes I use, so these are the ones I picked out. I picked out a really big one, and a couple rounds. You'll see that I like my round brushes. I can put a decent amount of water and paint in them, and they come to a nice fine point. This one is also a script or a liner brush. I actually got that one from my grandparents' neighbor whose wife was a ceramist. She used it for painting glazes on her ceramic pieces. Now that I got my colors all ready, my paper's taped down, I have an extra little area to mix my colors. Now it's time for me to bring my idea to life. So, getting a couple colors down with watercolor. And for this painting, I wanted to do something special, something magical. And this year, in our backyard, in the middle of a large town, we saw the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. You know, I think a lot of people in the United States in 2024 probably saw some form of the Northern Lights, be it through their phone or with their human eyes. If you've been following me for any amount of time or seen any of my videos about how to paint with watercolors, you'll know that water is like the main ingredient. You can't have watercolors without water. So depending on how much water you add to a paint, it will dilute it and make it lighter. But if you want it darker, you add less water to your paint. You always want to add a little bit of water in order for it to stay watercolors. But playing around with that can be a lot of fun. I've been working hard lately since October of this year, 2024, on doing more confident brushstrokes. Really bold and confident. I took a workshop from Ian Stewart and he talked about that and it left a big impression on me. So I've been working hard on that. So just muddling my paintbrush on the paper, I try to do big, bold brushstrokes. It's still a work in progress. That's okay. It's okay to have your art always as a work in progress because you can always learn something, always get better, always come back to the magic. And I really wanted this painting to feel like magic with Aurora Borealis and a Northern Wish. This painting, I called it Northern Wishes. And as it comes to life, you might see why I decided to title it that. So here I am putting another coat of that dark purple paint. The first layer of watercolor is dry, so I can layer more watercolor on top of it. That's one of my favorite things about watercolor painting, is that I can keep adding layers and layers to build up depth and contrast and making colors darker once my initial layer is dry and the next one after that. Because if you try to do this with your paper still wet, it might actually lift the paint off the paper, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do when you want something darker. So I'm building up my painting, bringing the darks in there. All the paint in my palette, at least most of it, is freshly squeezed out of the tube, so I can get really vibrant, rich, deep colors. But I always have to remind myself to add a little bit of water because it's so easy to accidentally paint with just the watercolor paint. It just doesn't have the same quality if you don't add even just a smidge of water. So I'm building up my painting. What I like to do is start with a background. Sometimes that's the least fun part of the painting, so I get that out of the way first. So once I get to the fun part, I can really dive deep and really, lose myself in the zen of painting, sometimes with that little tiny paintbrush. And as you work, it's important to change around how you see your painting because stepping back, you might notice something. And it could be something small, it could be something big. You never know until you do it. So, I gotta tell you something about this painting. It took me over 6 hours from start to finish, from my conception preliminary sketch on my iPad, outline, prepping paper, and doing the actual painting. For me, that's a significant amount of time. I'm actually a pretty quick painter, so doing this, I slowed down. I really thought about it. So my paper's dry. It's time for me to start moving into more mixed media. I have this giant tube of white gouache paint. Yes, gouache is that funny word that you see that's kind of related to watercolors. It's an opaque, I would call an opaque cousin of watercolor. If you use traditional gouache, you can let it dry, add more water, let it sit, and it starts working again, just like watercolor. So I have white gouache that I'm layering over it because, yes, there's white paint in watercolors, but it's not as opaque as gouache can be. And I really wanted that snow to sparkle and bring in some pastel-y looking lights for the Aurora Borealis. So I added white gouache, and that's not going to be the last piece of my mixed media painting. You will see I will be adding more than watercolor and gouache. But for now, I'm building up the layers, the depth, working background to foreground. That way I can layer even more. I can overlap, play around, muddle around a little bit here and there. If I don't like something, add some more white gouache and just paint over it. When I traditionally paint with watercolors, I use the white of the paper. I have everything planned out. But this, I wanted to have some more fun and have some more freedom and hopefully bring more magic. And sometimes you do a brush stroke just like now and you're like, oh, that is not what I wanted to do. Oh, that just made it worse. Just add some water, take a breath, be friends with your paper towel, and kind of soak up the paint, spread it around. Even with white gouache on your paintbrush, you can still do that. So, get familiar with your materials. I've done this type of painting before, adding white gouache to my watercolors in my sketchbook, and that paper is usually quite smooth. And that is one of the reasons why I decided to go out of my comfort zone and play around with using not my favorite watercolor paper. So this is Hot Press Arches, my favorite watercolor paper brand, and it's smooth. The paint does not absorb the same as the cold press paper, but I had other ideas I wanted to achieve with the smooth paper. So, building up layers and layers. I mentioned that this painting took me over 6 hours from start to finish. Now, that wasn't just one day. That was over about a week of time, and not every day. I probably spent a couple, like 1 or 2 evenings working on the sketch on my iPad, and then 3 or 4 different days in my studio, sitting and painting, working on it, letting it dry between layers, not rushing it, thinking about the magic of Christmas, the twinkle in the eyes of your little child when it's Christmas morning. You know, it's those special moments in life that you should treasure. And I wanted this painting to hold some of that magic. And I hope that in the end of this video, you will see that magic. Speaking of magic, what is your favorite memory of Christmas? I would love for you to share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear all the Christmas magic. Speaking of magic, stars. I use white gouache on my paintbrush and tapped it 2 different ways to get those little stars. And now it's time for me to work on one of my main subjects, the reindeer. I was really excited to paint this reindeer, but this part right here, it is the ugly stage. I hated these colors, but I did not worry about it because I told myself, layers, work in layers. Just because the first layer isn't perfect, it's the ugly stage. It's okay. Take a breath. Take another breath and then start again. Or continue in this case. And that's the thing. Every single painting, no matter how big or small, does have an ugly stage. And what sets you apart is getting past that ugly stage. And that's the hardest part sometimes. You know, I think one of the hardest parts of watercolor is releasing control and letting the paint do its thing on the paper. And other times it's pushing past the ugly stage. And that could be said with all stages in life. There's hard stages, there's easy stages. Same thing with painting. And this reindeer, I spent time on him. Since I had the background just about how I wanted, I could overlap part of him over the background with the help of white gouache, and then the dark legs over the light colored snow. So I just got to work, got in the zone, and painted. Layer upon layer, slowly building. It's like slowly building the excitement for Christmas for a child. It's like, all right, time to get a Christmas tree. Let's wrap it in lights. Let's gather all the decorations. And now let's put them on the tree. Okay, tree is up. Now it's time to write a letter to Santa. Let's figure out what kind of cookies we're going to bake him. You know, it's just all the steps. Same thing with painting, it's just all steps. Take them one at a time. That's what I did with this one. And I'm so happy I did. I am very proud of how this painting turned out. I had a number of people tell me over different events this holiday season, this is your best painting ever. I'm like, you know what? I feel it. But that makes me nervous because how in the world am I going to top this? Good question. Very good question. I feel like the past 2 years of working full-time as an artist, teaching classes, getting out there, just doing the basic brushstrokes with my beginner classes all the time has helped me do this. And it's important to do all the steps. You may not want to, but in the long run, it will help you. And playing around with paints, even unfinished paintings for my classes that I do in-person classes that are step-by-step, like the paint and sip style classes that you see, but with watercolors and my favorite paper and my favorite paints. So the nice quality materials. That way people don't have to fight paper pilling and falling apart with too much water and stuff. But back to the magic of Christmas. I spent a lot of time on this reindeer. So I have more white gouache on my brush, you'll notice, because he's getting lighter. If I had just watercolors, he'd just keep getting darker and darker. There are some more opaque colors of watercolors, but I don't have a lot of those, especially the lighter colors. So I just sprinkled in some white gouache of my paints here and there. And now it's time for the next layer, the next mixed media part, colored pencils. I had a lot of fun with these colored pencils. I'll make sure to leave in the description below all the materials, or brands at least, that I used for this painting. So if you're curious, you can check them out. And all the links that I'll have will be affiliate links. So if you want to support me by buying yourself some art supplies, click on them. Even if you don't buy the exact item, if you purchase while you're in that window, then I get a percentage and then I can buy more art supplies. Yeah, I like art supplies. And I really like these colored pencils. I only got a couple of like some basic colors that I knew I would use. So yeah, now I'm going back and forth between color pencil and watercolors, really building up the depth and layers. Layers, layers, layers. Layers is like onions. Yes, onions, but with art. So really building up little bits at a time so I don't overdo it. In the past, I have gotten too energetic, excited and such, and kind of made things too dark too quickly and regretted it. But now I've learned to take the time, savor the moment, and just play around with the little brushes and the big brushes and everything in between, and playing around with more mixed media. I used to be of the mindset of everything has to be watercolor, no mixed media, nothing added, nothing opaque. And now I've relaxed more and played more a round of different materials. And in the long run, I have enjoyed it a lot more. It's a lot more fun. And you know what? If you're not having fun, why are you even doing it? Art specifically, you should enjoy it. It's probably your hobby, something you do to relieve stress. You can enjoy something and not like the outcome. You can just enjoy the process. It could just be about the act of doing it, not of the final product, and that's okay. So the eye, I like to do the eyes last. Usually breathe the soul into the little character I'm painting. In this one, he's a reindeer. So just playing around, same paintbrush I've been using for a while, but I like squish the hairs apart so it does little tiny hairs. Get lots of texture in there. Between the white gouache, the watercolor, and the color pencils on the reindeer, and now working on Santa's beard some more. And you can't forget his mustache too. Get that white. Once again, fanning my brush out, getting some more texture going in there. So we got a reindeer wishing to be one of the reindeers of Christmas. A little bit of whimsy, a little bit of realisticness, and can't forget the magic. At least, I hope you see the magic. So, switching gears a little bit, taking art classes, you kind of gather some art materials, and this one right here I found in one of my bags. And I'm like, ooh, what's this? Let's use it. I've heard about it, but I don't remember buying it, so I must have gotten like a free pile, but it's a Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayon. And for the first time ever, I played with them on this painting. So here I am, once again, using it to add more white over the white gouache. So really bringing that snow up, like really working on making it bright and white. And I also use it on the reindeer, of course on Santa, just playing around. You can leave the texture raw, or you can grab a paintbrush with water and smooth it out. So I happen to have the white, and I also had this brown, which ended up to be absolutely perfect because the reindeer, white and brown. So I just added some water to my paintbrush, and now I'm smoothing out the texture that I just did with these water-soluble crayons. I actually had a lot of fun, and I want to get some more colors, but I'm not sure which colors to get. So if you do use any of my affiliate links, a percentage will go back to me, and I can get some more pretty colors and show you what I can create with them. So this piece, this painting, mixed media, this is the most I've ever played around with all kinds of media art supplies on one piece. Got watercolor, gouache, color pencil, and we got the Neocolor 2. And there's another one that you'll see a little bit. But before you see that, I'm gonna say right now, if you enjoy watching this video, please like it. Little thumbs up. Click. And if you find out you like to hear me talk about art and everything, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I am hoping someday to get my channel monetized, so I'm getting closer. Not there yet, but you can help me with that, because I would love to share more about creating art with watercolors and playing around with maybe some mixed media. Art, have fun with it. If you're not having fun, what's the point? Play around. Just do what makes you happy with your time, because if you don't, what's the point? So I really hope you have enjoyed watching this video of bringing Northern Wishes to life. Ooh, this part, yeah. I'm gonna fix that eye. Watch. even a little push with my finger, some water. So I'm really happy, like extremely happy, how this painting turned out. And I still think, how am I going to top this? I just need to draw and paint more, I guess. Just do more. The more time I spend, the more hours spent, get better at. Oh, here's the final piece to my mixed media puzzle. If you guessed it, it's a Posca paint pen. This is the, I think the extra fine or fine tip. I'll have a link below. But I wanted to bring some stars out more. The gouache stars are not, as always, crisp and white. Sometimes they get a little diluted. So this guy right here, I think there's like acrylic paint base in the pen, not water base. But I can even use my finger right there and smudge the paint a little bit. And I wanted to add like some misty breath. So using the texture of the watercolor crayon, more or less, to achieve that. And then bring some more white to his little toesies, or above his toesies. So just playing around, figuring out what works best. And then when I'm done with the painting, I sign it. Gotta sharpen that pencil. Where do I want to sign it? I like to do a couple of mock signatures to make sure I have the placement right before I put my pencil to the paper. Such concentration. So, thank you so much for coming along on this little painting video. Not so much a tutorial as talking about the magic of Christmas and watching steps of this coming to life. I hope this video has inspired you on your watercolor or mixed media journey. And you know what? I hope to see you in the next video. And if I don't, maybe I'll see you later on down the road. Thanks again, friend.